The Detroit Pistons are being criticized for being complacent at the trade deadline. They lost in the second round of the playoffs this year, and everybody is saying now, in hindsight, they should have made a big deal at the trade deadline and acquired a second scorer. Everybody knew this team needed more scoring. They have all their picks going forward. They have young players that they can afford to lose. Why didn't they make a big move at the trade deadline and prepare themselves for a deep playoff run? I'm here to tell you that they are doing the hardest work in team building, and that's ignoring the noise from those critics. And they're building their team aligned with the 10 Commandments, which specifically are designed to resist the pressure that comes from that noise. Fans and the media alike in NBA circles, they subscribe to the old model of building an NBA team. Talent maximization. Acquire as much talent as possible at all costs in as immediate a window as possible. The second apron era demands something different from NBA front offices, and that's structural maximization. It's not just about talent. Obviously, talent is the number one factor in whether you win or not. But that talent needs to be targeted and aligned to a structure on your roster where the role that the players are assigned to and the salaries for those players are all in a hierarchy that allows you to continue building going forward. If teams want to establish multi-year championship windows, they need to operate smarter than that, and that's what Detroit is doing. If they would have made a move at the deadline to acquire a secondary scorer, just somebody that was available, which, by the way, the trade deadline market is more narrow than the offseason, your options are more limited, they would have been putting that step before some key team-building decisions that had to be made, before they even saw their team win a playoff series. This team won 14 games 2 seasons ago. This postseason run was the first playoff series that this iteration of this team has won together. How do you justify giving up assets to try to make this team win a championship when they hadn't even won a playoff series yet? I think that that's unrealistic to give this team a championship window this season, and clearly the front office agreed with me. And it's because they're looking at the structure of this team and deciding what they need. They wanted to see this roster in the playoffs first. And crucially, they want to see what Duren is to this team. Patience and sequencing is much more important than pure talent acquisition. They're going to answer questions in the right order. They'll add a second scorer. There's plenty of ways to do that. You need to decide what Jalen Duren is, and you need to decide what Ausar Thompson is. One of my commandments, thou shalt practice cap integrity. That is about understanding the hierarchy of your roster. Who's your number one, your number two, number three, and so on. Your number one, number two, and number three combine to form your team's identity. I've said that plenty of times. If you're a subscriber, that's not news to you. What does it mean to be a player that's a part of an identity as opposed to part of the supporting cast? When you are one of those top 3 players, you are a structural pillar of the team, such that if you were to leave, the team would take on a different identity. Any changes outside of the top 3, your other 2 starters, your 6th man, etc., those could all change, and the identity of the team would remain the same. The team would still function the same way, and hence they're more replaceable. And so that's the question that Detroit is asking themselves. Their front office is saying, is Jalen Duren replaceable to us? There are clearly other teams in the league that would pay him max money to be their number 2. And so that's what he's worth. Is he worth that to us too? And if so, then yeah, we'll pay him $40 million annually. The market dictates what a player is worth based on how they're viewed at that time when they come up for a new contract. But what teams need to make sure to do is align the salary that they're going to give a player with the role that they're going to fulfill on the team. You cannot give Jalen Duren $40 million annually for the next several years to be your 4th or 5th best player. If you look at your identity of Cade Cunningham, Jalen Duren, Ausar Thompson, the 3 of them, if you view them as less than a championship core and Jalen Duren is your 4th best player or 5th best player, you cannot afford to pay him that contract. You're better off moving him for a collection of other assets. That's how you maintain flexibility, by not overpaying players based on their role. Your number 1 is going to make max money. I would say your number 2 and number 3 should combine to be somewhere in the $80 to $90 million range. And that puts your identity in around the 150, $140 million range for the three of them combined. That leaves decent money to fill out the rest of your roster. So this Duren question has major implications for the rest of their roster. And that's why this front office wanted to resolve this before they decided how to fulfill that second scorer role. If Jalen Duren is indeed your second best player and you're going to pay him $40 million, you have Ausar Thompson coming up next offseason for his extension. How much is he going to get paid? Is he a $35 million player? If so, you probably can't afford another $40 or $50 million player on this team. And your second scorer needs to be a $20, $25 million player. What you pay Duren and Thompson dictates how you fulfill this second scorer role. And they have options. They have a lot of options for how to fulfill this role, including moving on from Jalen Duren. But that is what they're talking about in their offices right now. If they want to continue with this identity they've built, this half-court, hard-nosed identity of Cade, Jalen Duren, Ausar Thompson, and supplement that group with the surrounding cast, and they think that's championship level, then they should have no problem giving Duren his $40 million annually. But maybe they're saying to themselves, we think our identity needs to be more perimeter-oriented. We think that Jalen Duren could be replaced by Isaiah Stewart in the starting lineup or another center. But we don't want to pay him $40 million plus to just be a very good player. If you're paying someone that money, they need to be core to your identity. If they were to, for example, trade for a guy like Kyrie Irving and he becomes your second, third best player, now this team fundamentally is structured differently. Let's say they love their identity. They believe in its championship upside of Cade, Jalen Duren, Ausar Thompson. The second scorer can be fulfilled by a guy like Kobe White. Go sign him. He becomes your starting shooting guard. We saw them make that adjustment in the series against Cleveland. That is their true need, is another creator in the backcourt. And you can go get a guy like him for $20, $25 million annually. He slots into your fourth starter. He's your second scorer, but your fourth best player, and he's being paid accordingly. You keep all your assets. You don't trade 3 first-round picks for Trey Murphy III just to upgrade over Tobias Harris, a stretch four that you already have on your books. Well, he's a free agent, but somebody that you already can bring back without giving up any assets. Go the other way. What if they say, we have Isaiah Stewart. We think swapping Jalen Duren for Isaiah Stewart, who makes $15 million, is not that much of a difference when all is said and done. If that's the case, they can afford to trade Jalen Duren. You're not going to pay him $40 million to be your fourth or fifth best player. Isaiah Stewart making $15 million as your starting center, that's really nice. That opens up a lot of possibilities for you. And so you're not going to let the asset walk, obviously, but you can re-sign Jalen Duren and then look to move him over the next year or so as you get ready for Ausar Thompson's extension. That's a legitimate path. I have an episode coming about Cleveland and why they should trade Donovan Mitchell. What if Detroit wanted to trade for Donovan Mitchell? He would be a great fit there. Now your identity is Cade Cunningham, Donovan Mitchell, Ausar Thompson. Jalen Duren becomes less important. The teams that respect cap integrity are aligning with the way the league is designed to work. The league put the second apron in to encourage parity. And what does that mean in the context of the Pistons? If you don't see Jalen Duren as your second best player, some other team will, and he should go be that for them rather than your fourth best player. And that's why if you pay him $40 million to be your fourth best player, you're going to feel the repercussions of that by having less roster building options, less flexibility. I believe the teams that maximize this structure find the most talented number one possible, most talented number two possible, all the way down. They're not miscasting guys in roles, asking someone who should be a number 3 to be a number 5, and so on, and being willing to pay the penalties for them to do that. I don't think that's taking care of the players either. I think that teams have the strongest chemistry when everybody feels like they're being maximized. Everybody is assigned to their proper role and everybody feels self-actualized. When you're pigeonholing guys into roles that they don't belong in, that's when you get substandard results. Again, conventional wisdom, fans in the media will tell me I'm too safe, that you don't win titles this way, that nothing's guaranteed, so why care about maintaining a wide championship window? When you're close, you just go all out, give up your extra picks, give up whatever you have to maximize the talent on your roster right now take several picks, go trade for Lauri Markkanen, go trade for Trey Murphy. I would argue that trades like that tend to not work. Look at the Magic and Desmond Bane. The Knicks traded for Mikal Bridges. They look great now. It wasn't long ago that people were criticizing the Knicks, saying they should have held on to those assets to get ready for a Giannis trade. I would be surprised if Detroit did something like that. They have every option at their disposal, and I'm confident that they're going through their decision framework in the right order. They need to decide what Jalen Duren is. They need to decide right now what Ausar Thompson is and the extension they expect to give him next summer, and that will dictate the player that they need to target to be their second scorer and how much money that player makes. They are going to maintain cap integrity. If they have to give up assets to acquire that player that they feel is best added to a championship identity, so be it. But the reason they didn't do that at the trade deadline is because they did not have those answers on Jalen Duren and Ausar Thompson yet.